Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today we're going to be considering the situation of Christians living in the Gulf states. Although dominated by Islam, there are approximately 2 million Christians living in this region, mostly foreign workers coming from India, Lebanon, and the Philippines. To tell us more about the challenges facing these Christians, it is my great privilege to welcome the former Apostolic Nuncio to the Gulf States and Apostolic Delegate to Arabia, His Excellency Archbishop Munjed El Hechem. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us here today in our program.
Thank you for your invitation.
To give our viewers a little bit of a perspective, what countries are we talking about when we speak of the Gulf states?
First of all, I am Lebanese. I was born in the mountain of Lebanon, a small village called Akura, by the mission that the Holy Father, Benedict XVI, gave me by my appointment on the 28th of August 2005 as Apostolical Nuncio, resident in Kuwait, but at the same time Nuncio in Yemen, Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and Apostolical Delegate in Arabia, which include 2 countries with which the Holy See didn't have still diplomatic relations. So we hope it very soon.
You were a groundbreaker in that regard.
Yes, it means that until now, the only 2 countries of the area with which the Holy See didn't have diplomatic relations are Saudi Arabia and Oman. I always been for 29 years professor of Islamic law at the Lateran University, even after when I became bishop. And the Holy Father, knowing the importance of having better relation with the Muslim world, as he attended a conference in Lugano in 1997, I gave a conference and he was present about the Christian-Muslim relations in Lebanon and the Middle East and in the world. When he became Pope, he called me and he asked me, even I was at that time 71 years old, to be nuncio in that area of the Gulf countries.
And this was a challenge for you.
Sure, but it was very, very interesting, and I had the opportunity to establish good relations. For example, during my permanence, we established diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates, and we would like to speak about that a little bit later maybe. The relation with Saudi Arabia are now much, much better, especially with King Abdullah, who made personally with the Pope, who make the great conference at the United Nations for the interreligious dialogue. And maybe you will be surprised, we hope, that very soon it will be diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and the Holy See.
That would be a big step.
Because now we have more than 4 million Christians in Saudi Arabia, on a population of 22 million, almost 1 person or 5 persons in Saudi Arabia living in Saudi Arabia is Christian.
I
The
think
Catholics-
this is a big misconception, because many people think that in the Gulf states, there are no Christians.
No.
But
We
in fact,
have
there's
very large
a large community.
communities in all the Gulf countries, and there is
What
a
kind of
very
numbers?
important reason.
What kind of numbers are, just to give the viewers an understanding of what we're talking about here?
Let's speak about Kuwait, for example. The population of Kuwait is about 3,100,000. From those 3 millions, only 1 million are Kuwaiti. They have Kuwaiti citizenship. And about 1 million are Christians. The Catholics are about 400,000. The majority are Filipinos.
So
and
the majority
Indian.
are foreign workers, in fact, of the Christian communities.
Yes, workers, and there is person of very high level, engineers, doctors.
So it's an important, it's a minority, but it's a very important minority in these Gulf
It is
countries.
almost the same proportion. In every country, we can say the Christians constitute about at least the third or the quarter of the population.
Now, notwithstanding this important minority, the life of Christians in these Gulf countries is not always easy.
Now, it depends from one country to another. For example, in Kuwait, we have 3 Catholic churches, officially recognized as churches. The other communities, Armenian, Greek Orthodox, Coptic Orthodox, they have their own churches. The Coptic Orthodox inaugurate one of the greatest Coptic church of the world. It was built recently, inaugurated in Kuwait last year.
In these countries, when we speak about the Christian expression of faith, they face restrictions. One can say they have freedom of worship, but there is no freedom of religion. What is the distinction? What is the difference?
The distinction is very, very important, because the religious freedom, it means the possibility for the Christians, for the Catholics, to have churches, but surely without having the possibility of having, campanile or ring the les cloches, or
to ring the bells.
ring the bells as others, or have. But in Qatar, for example, where I inaugurate the great church of Qatar in Doha, I think it's one of the biggest Catholic centers of the world. The Emir of Qatar gave 600,000 square meters to build 16 churches.
Which is extraordinary,
Anglican,
because
Coptic, etc.
it's in some countries, for example, like Saudi Arabia, the church cannot construct because the land, the soil itself is considered holy, whereas in Qatar, the opportunity has been given to the church.
Now, you ask me a very important question to explain what difference between religious freedom and freedom of conscience. Lebanon is the only country of the Arab world and of the Middle East who, in his constitution, the Article 9 of the Lebanese constitution, declare clearly, openly, that every Lebanese had the complete freedom of conscience. In Arabic, حرية المعتقد. It means he can believe, he can choose the religion he wants, and if he wants, he can change from one religion to another. A Muslim can very freely become Christian. A Christian can become Muslim without any difficulties by the law.
But Lebanon is exception.
It's an exception.
It's an exception.
But we have to recognize that Lebanon is an Arab country. He is founder and member of the Arab League. Lebanon is founder and member of the Conference of the Islamic Countries, and he has in his constitution that freedom of conscience.
So this is the
That's
model.
only Lebanon.
This is the model that we would like to see.
Yes, that's what we hope to have it as model. And I think it is the main reason who inspired the Holy Father, John Paul II, to call Lebanon more than a country.
It's a message to the world.
A message to the world. In the other countries, unhappily, we have religious freedom with some restriction. For example, until now in Saudi Arabia, we cannot have churches, we cannot have officially priests, even there is some priests working in different places.
Hidden.
Without difficulties, without problem, at the condition to not manifest
not to
very
proselytize,
openly, to proclaim openly, because the problem is not coming from the government or from the majority of the population. We have to take in consideration that there is still some conservative, some fanatic, and the king, the government, and the majority of the population are doing a lot to change the situation, and I hope myself
to improve it.
That will be improved very, very, very soon.
I think
in other countries, for example, in the Emirates, we have enough churches, we have Catholic schools, we have a freedom to teach catechism near the churches, not in the schools. For example, in Kuwait, it is not normal that in the 4 Catholic schools, the Muslim students receive the religious education in the schools. It is prohibited to the Christian to have the catechism even in our 3 or 4 Catholic schools, when the Muslims are receiving the
Islamic instruction.
The Christian students in some of those schools, the Christians are more than 60%. They cannot have the response of the government. You have full freedom to teach catechism on Friday or on Sunday or what you want, near the church.
So the governments in these countries, they say, for the most part, you are a guest, you are a minority in our country, you have the freedom to worship, but you do not have the freedom to evangelize. Church services have to be within the churches and on the church ground.
That's true.
And there is no freedom of conscience in the sense that if a Muslim wishes to convert, he is forbidden. In fact, often the family, the social pressure is such that it can be to the point of death.
And I have to say that in some countries, even in Kuwait, there is some centers covered through different name. For example, officially is to give to the foreigners an idea about the Kuwaiti culture, about the Muslim religion. In reality, they are centers for proselytism, for conversion of Christians. If they are converted to Islam, no problem at all. They are encouraged, but never a Muslim, that's what they call a radda, can be officially converted to Christianity.
If we assume that the majority of Muslims wish to live in peace and are moderate, why do we not hear from this silent majority? Why is it that we only hear from the fundamentalist and we only hear about the violence against Christians?
I think what you say now is very, very, very important. And I think it is very important that the Western countries must have a better knowledge of Islam. And they have to deal and to behave and to, in their reaction with the Muslim population, they shouldn't provoke them and encourage the fundamentalist and the fanatic to take the power or to commit. I am absolutely sure that what happened on the 11th of September, it wasn't approved by the majority of Muslims. It was the action of some fundamentalist, some fanatic, some who, Bin Laden and others, who by fanatism and by reaction against some behavior of some countries, and especially, that's another a terrible problem, who changed completely the behavior and the mentality of many Muslims, the Israelo-Palestinian problem.
That's the heart of the matter.
That's the heart of the matter. And that's the consequences of the way in which the state of Israel was founded and how the Israeli people, they behave. First of all, how they was received when they start to immigrate in the Middle East. How was, if we go in the history, how was the relations between the Muslims and the Jewish in Andalusia, in Turkey, in all the Arab countries before the foundation of the State of Israel, and how are the relations now
today?
You imagine that when the State of Israel was founded, more than 500,000 Jewish was living in Egypt. More than 200,000 Jewish was living in Beirut, in Lebanon. More than 300,000 Jewish was living in Yemen, in perfect relation with them. The first Jewish immigrated in Palestine was received very, very well by the Muslim and Arab people. They sell them lands, they lived with them until the day they proclaimed the foundation of a state. And since that, now the Muslim people, they feel they are humiliated, and more the Jewish make the colony, put the hand on Jerusalem, give difficulties to the Muslims to arrive to their mosques. All that make the fossé deeper and larger.
The radicalization.
And may provoke the radicalization.
What is the answer? So we have...
The answer is peace. The answer is what the Holy See from the beginning sustained. 2 states for those 2 peoples to live in peace, in secure frontier, and to refound the good and better relation it was always exist between Jewish and Muslim until 1948.
And what about the relation between Christians and Muslims, this question of radicalization? How do we answer, for example, now, in the papers in the Middle East Synod, there is documents suggesting about an idea of secularization, positive secularization, and I suppose the direction is the idea of the separation of state and faith.
There is a real separation between religion and politics, between church and state. For that, it is possible, I arrived at another question, that in the Western countries you can have
this understanding,
that separation, and even arrive to a laicity. And even what the Holy Father called, when he was in Paris, the laïcité positive.
Exactly, positive secularism.
Yes. And even we cannot use that expression, that word, in the Muslim world and even in all the Middle East, even for us, for Christians.
Because it has a negative sense.
The citizens, the people of the Middle East, by nature is a religious person. He cannot be a lay people. He cannot, laicity didn't exist in the Middle East, nor for Muslims and nor for Christians.
I understand.
For that, it is much better to speak about citoyenneté, citizenship, of equality between the citizens, but leaving to the citizen, because Islam is not only religion. Islam is religion and society. Every act, every action has at the same time the religious value. For that, you cannot speak to a Muslim or in the Arab world about laicity. And I never forget once a sheikh of Hezbollah told me when President Hariri, when he was killed, make a project of law to take the teaching of religion from the official schools, because the program are very charged in Lebanon. They have to study 2-3 languages, Arabic, French, and English, and proposing that the teaching of the religion can be in the mosque or in the church. One of the greatest leader of Hezbollah told me, what Hariri is thinking to do, he will catch out God from Lebanon. He cannot do it. God has the right to be.
So the integrity of the person includes
religion.
So this is the thrust of the argument. Then it is for the recognition of the citizenships of all denominations.
Yes, to recognize the equality.
The equality of all.
Independently of the religious belief, that they have the same right, the same obligation under a state who, the ideal for us is the constitution, the situation in Lebanon. For that, I think Lebanon can be used as model. And I think that is one of the very important problem of the Muslim world today is to understand democracy, is to understand the respect of right of man, to realize the importance of every liberty, not liberty of association, liberty of religious liberty, liberty of conscience. For me, one of the greatest decision of Second Vatican Council is the Declaration on the Religious Freedom. For me, it was a wonderful act of courage that the Economic Council decided that every human being has the full right to have the religion he wants. And it's great. That's beautiful.
Your Excellency, thank you. This is the start of a long conversation and a long road, I believe, in the Middle East. I'd like to thank you for being here with us today in our program.
From my side too, I thank you. I hope that I gave some exact ideas, and my real hope and desire that Christians, Muslims, and Jewish must know each other better. And I think the first necessity of dialogue is to know the other and to accept the other as he is, and not as we want him to be. Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program. And if you'd like to know more about the situation of Christians in the Middle East, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.